Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today I wanted to come here and talk to you about my 2022 reading stats. So for the past week, I've been looking at my story graph and my GoodReads and putting together basically all the things I read, what I read, the stars I gave, the amount of pages I read, everything together, and I wanted to talk about it. In 2022, I read 116 books, and that's the most that I've read, honestly, I think ever in a year. And so it was a really exciting year, and I read some good books, some not so great books. I guess let's just talk about it. All right, so I have my iPad in front of me, and so if I'm looking down, that's what I'm looking at, just because I want to make sure I cover everything that I kept track of. So to start, in 2022, I read 116 books. Of those, 2 I have DNF'd, and I don't know if I even want to say but I DNF'd, but I will. My first book was A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. Honestly, I couldn't get into this book. I think I was maybe like 20% in and I just gave up. I was not wanting to read it. I even tried listening to the audiobook, didn't want to listen to it, so I put it down, because who's trying to read books that they don't like? And the second book I DNF'd this year was A Song of Achilles. A lot of people like this book. I'm sorry. I was literally even more than halfway through it. I could not finish it. I just wasn't enjoying the story at all. Maybe one day I'll get back to it, but honestly, I don't think I will. So the total pages that I read this year was 30,456 pages, which accounts to about 84 pages a day, which makes sense. As for the total hours listened, that was 281.17 hours. That's a lot. Which was an average of 46 minutes a day, which I don't listen to audiobooks every day. I definitely read every day. Don't listen to audiobooks every day. It's usually, I will listen to one when I am cooking, baking, cleaning, doing things around the house, stuff like that. I usually will listen to an audiobook if I'm not listening to a podcast or music. So the total books I read in 2022 was 116. 2, as I previously said, was DNF'd. And basically, so that means I was at an average amount of books read at a month, 9.5, which makes sense. I had some reading slump months in the beginning of the year. In 2020, I think around March, April, May, I didn't read a lot, but then it went skyrocketed in September, October, November, December, so averages out. The average book length that I read was 354 pages, which is kind of like the average book length for most books. That makes sense. As for my star ratings, so I'm a very emotional star giver. I will rate books based on how I feel, not necessarily based on like prose or how the layout was or how it was written. In some cases I will, but a lot of the times it's just kind of like my instant reaction when the book ends. But my average star rating is 3.7 stars in 2022. Near the end of the year, I was getting pretty harsh with my ratings, I have to say. I usually don't really rate below 3 stars. I started giving some 2 stars and 1 stars, I do have to say. I really like Storygraph on the way that they kind of lay out your reading stats. I find it gives a lot more information and it's more fun to look at, to be honest. They I'll put like a screen record, but they do like graphs and color coordination and all this stuff. It's a lot of fun. I gave 5 books 2 stars in 2022. So let's go over them. And I already know most of these are going to be, actually one is not romance. Okay, most of these are romance. So first is Penelope Douglas's Birthday Girl. This one was just awful. It was honestly very inappropriate, and usually I don't care that much. Like, romances can be like crazy, out of the ordinary, nothing that I would look for in a relationship, nothing that I would like even suggest in a relationship, but If I read it and it's interesting, I'm fine with it. I will rate it high if it's a really well-written book and if it's captivating and I really like the characters, but did not like Birthday Girl. Recently, I read Baby Mine by Kennedy Fox, another one I did not enjoy. Also, this is like a 2-book series. I think there's more in the series, but the first 2 books are about the same 2 characters, so their story doesn't like end in the first book, and I don't like that. I wanted to have like a ending, and so now I don't even know what happens to them. But I'm not reading the next book, so I can just Google it probably, but yeah, did not like that at all. Next book I gave 2 stars was A Merry Little Meet Cute by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. Oh, I didn't like this either, and it doesn't have the greatest ratings overall, which sucks. The cover is so cute, the premise was great, I was really into the story, but I just thought the characters were very lackluster, and it was slow yet rushed. I just didn't like it. I'm surprised I even finished it. I was very close to DNFing the book. The next book that I gave 2 stars, so this was earlier in the year, was One Day in December. Yeah, I remember not liking this book. I didn't like the characters, didn't really like the premise. Wasn't very interesting. I'm seeing some repetition in these books because the next book I gave 2 stars was The Guest List by Lucy Foley, and both One Day in December and The Guest List are from the Reese's Book Club, so maybe I don't like Reese Witherspoon's suggestions. The last book I gave 2 stars in 2022 was The Guest List by Lucy Foley. Spicy. This was awful. I am really good at guessing what happens in thrillers, what the plot twists are, who the killer is, if it's about a murder, all these things. And so I did guess basically all of the guest list. But the characters, I did not like. I think the ending was like too many loose ends were not tied together in a way that like it doesn't make sense that they were not tied together. Did not like this at all, which sucks because I hear so many good things about Lucy Foley, but I'm kind of nervous to read any more of her books because I just really did not like The Guest List. Moving forward on my star ratings, I gave 1 book 2.5 star. I gave, how many is this? 35 books 3-star ratings. I gave 6 books 3.5, 49 books 4-star rating, which count, like, I get it. I usually give most books 4 stars. 2 books 4.5 star rating, and 5-star I gave 15 books 5-star rating, which is honestly, that's a lot. I mean, compared to reading 116 books, it doesn't feel like a lot. Let's talk about them because I love these books. Do you see my cat? So one of the first books I gave 5 stars in 2022 was The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. Honestly, I was on a Mariana Zapata kick this year, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced her name, but I read, I think, about 6 of her books this year. Very, very slow burn. Honestly, I don't even like slow burn, but I really enjoyed her books, and I just love The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. The characters, immaculate. I love the love story. It was just fantastic. Going with the romance genre, I also gave 5 stars to Love You Wild by Becca Mack. I remember really enjoying this book. I read it in the summertime while I was on the beach. I loved Claire and Avery so much. It was just a great read. Really, really enjoyed it. I have 3 other romances. We'll go through them quick. So the next romance I gave 5 stars was Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Oh, this was such a heartfelt book. I loved it. It was so good. I don't know. It was just great. I really enjoyed the rough draft about 2 authors, kind of, I guess, battling it out. Didn't really like each other. Low-key, though, they love each other. It was just really good. I really, really enjoyed this. It was like Beach Read, but better. The last romance that I gave 5 stars was A Deal with the Devil by Elizabeth O'Rourke, who I also found as a new author this year. I think I read like 5 of her books. This series in general was amazing, and I think the 4th book came out this year as well, so I will definitely, or last year, I will definitely be picking it up, but I do think the first book was just the best. Loved it. Very, very spicy, so if you like spice, you should pick that book up. The next book I gave 5 stars was The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I do have this book. I literally don't know where it is, but I do own this book. This was amazing. So I actually picked this book up last summer. So summer of 2021 when I went camping. I brought it camping with me, picked it up. I read I think about 100 pages. And I didn't pick it up for another like 6 months. I don't know why. I just like didn't have an inclination to pick it up. And then I picked it up again in January of 2022 and I ate it up. It was so good. I don't know why like I took that break in between, but I'm surprised that it got a 5 stars because of that break. It still was amazing. The next book I gave 5 stars was Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This book had me on a chokehold. It's so good. I have not read the second one in the series because I'm just like nervous to read it, but it was amazing. I think it was way better than the Caraval series. It comes after the Caraval series, and maybe just Stephanie Garber's writing got better over time, but it's amazing. I really, really, really enjoyed Once Upon a Broken Heart. I gave 2 memoirs 5 stars this year. The first one was Know My Name by Chanel Miller, which was very, very heartbreaking. Actually, both the memoirs I read that I gave 5 stars were heartbreaking. Amazing book. I listened to it through audiobook, which is narrated by Chanel Miller, so I really suggested if you do want to read this book to listen to it via audiobook. It was just very, very sad, very well written, and honestly a story that needs to be heard by everybody. The second memoir that I read this year that I gave 5 stars was Jeanette McCurdy's I'm Glad My Mom Died. Just like many people in my generation, I grew up watching Jeanette McCurdy on iCarly, loved her so much, and was kind of sad that she stopped acting. And so when I heard that she was coming out with a memoir, I knew I was going to pick it up right away. It just was a no-brainer. And it was also very, very sad, but very reflective, and just something that like really captivates you. And it is great to see how Jeanette McCurdy has overcome her obstacles in life and has come out on the other side. I also listened to I'm Glad My Mom Died via audiobook because Jeanette McCurdy also narrates it, and it was amazing. The last one I don't have a physical copy of was The Secret Lives of Church Ladies. I first heard this on Noelle Gallagher's YouTube channel and, you know, added it to my TBR, and then I got the ebook of it and also listened to the audiobook simultaneously, and it was fantastic. Some of these short stories were, oh, I didn't say, it's a short story collection. Some of them were absolutely amazing. I loved all of them. Peach Cobbler and Dear Sister. Oh yes, those two I literally thought about for weeks after reading this. Like weeks, I was thinking about these short stories every single day. They were really, really good. So I really suggest this. Some spice in some of them, which I was not, like I didn't expect it, but it was there. The last 5 books that I gave 5 stars to were Last Sacrifice by Rochelle Mead. So that is the last book in the Vampire Academy series. So I had a book club where we read every single Vampire Academy book. And I don't know what happened. I think I was really busy when it ended because I didn't finish like the last 100 pages of Last Sacrifice, and I didn't realize it until the new series came out on Peacock. And then I was looking back at the books and I was like, wait, how does this series end? I don't even remember it. And so I realized I didn't finish the book, so I finished it and it was fantastic. Amazing way to end the series. Honestly, would not change anything about it. It was amazing. And I have that book behind here. I have the whole series. The next book I gave 5 stars was Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, who is a Canadian author, so shout out to her. This is my first sci-fi that I've read in a long time, and I ate this shit up. It was so good. I tabbed quite a bit, and I listened to it through audiobook and then also read it, kind of went back and forth, but it was amazing. I loved this book a lot. It just was so captivating. The story building was amazing. It was so heart-wrenching, yet very like inspiring and positive. It was just a great book. And I started this series, so it came out as a TV series. So I started it, haven't finished it yet, but I'm also enjoying that. Then we have Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. I mean, who doesn't love this book? It is so short. It is my shortest book I read this year, yet it took me really long to read because I don't know if you can see, but like every page I have annotated. Like at some point I was like, is there a point of me tabbing this book if I'm gonna tab every single page? Such an amazing book. Like the letters were so inspiring, such depth in the words, so much you can take out of it that you can read this multiple times and get something new out of it every single time. I will probably reread this year because fantastic first read. I'm sure the second read is even better. Then finally, the last 2 books I gave 5 stars. My new favorites, Frederick Bachman's Beartown and A Man Called Uwe. So I read A Man Called Uwe first, and this freaking book broke me, shattered me to pieces everywhere. Tabbed it a bunch. It just was, okay, first of all, my tabs, like, why are they sticking out so much? Okay, but this book was amazing. It is heartbreaking. It is filled with such inspirational messages that you can take with you like through your whole life. Like, grumpiest man alive. Uwe really reminded me of my boyfriend. He's like the same kind of person. I loved it. And I also have 2 cats, and Uwe like has this cat that follows him everywhere in the book, and it was just like, I don't know, I loved it so much. I'm very excited to watch A Man Called Otto, which is like the American rendition of A Man Called Uwe, which just came out in theaters. So I am definitely going to watch it. And then we have Beartown, which, based on the synopsis, I was not very interested in this. But knowing his writing, I knew that it would be an amazing book. I just had to pick it up and start. And I took this pretty slow. I think it took me maybe like a month to read the whole book. But fantastic. Like, I will rave day and night about Frederick Bachman's writing. I'm always talking about him to everyone that will listen. It's amazing because his work is translated into English from Swedish, and it is so fantastic. I just cannot imagine how it actually sounds in Swedish. It's just amazing because it works so well in English. And translated works don't always translate the way that they're supposed to, like in between languages. But this is a story about, you know, a very culty type small town, very much toxic men, toxic environments, truth being told but nobody wanting to listen, lots of heartbreak, recovery. Just, it was fantastic. I really suggest you guys to pick this up. I have the other 2 books, so I'm really excited to start Us Against You. It's on my TBR this year, and then I think I can maybe read the winners next year. I want to like space his books out because I feel like I need to like savor his writing. I don't want to go through all of his books in a matter of like months, because then I won't have anything of his to read. So we talked about the shortest book I read this year, which was at 80 pages with Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet. The longest book that I read this year was Keeping 13 by Chloe Walsh, which was 936 938 pages. I can't believe a romance was 938 pages. I would say it didn't feel like it. That I finished that book very fast, but that is crazy to me. The most shelved book that I read was Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck, which was shelved by 3,411,846 people in GoodReads. The least shelved book that I read was Just Friends to Just Married by Renee Roselle, and this was shelved by 159 people. I got this book in one of like the little libraries in my neighborhood. I read it in like one sitting. It was like 100 pages. It wasn't that great. The moods that I read this year were mostly emotional, lighthearted, funny, reflective, dark, mysterious, adventurous, hopeful, tense, sad, and inspiring. The other ones are a little too small to care about, but mostly emotional and lighthearted, which makes sense. I read a lot of romance in 2022. The pace of the books that I read were 19% slow, 58% medium pace, and 24% fast. So that's interesting. Yeah, medium pace I would say was most of the books that I read. As for the page number, 25% of the books I read were under 300 pages, 65% were between 300 and 500 pages, and then 10% of books were above 500 pages, that's pretty good. I am terrified of big books, as I said in my last video, and knowing that 10% of the books I read were more than 500 pages kind of makes me feel better. As for fiction versus nonfiction, I read 88% of my books were fiction, 12% were nonfiction. So that's also checks out. I don't read a lot of nonfiction. I do try reading about like one-ish a month. As for the genres, I read mostly romance and contemporary. And then you'll see, I'll put the chart here, you'll see everything else is like this compared to the other two. Fantasy, which is shocking. I'm not really much of a fantasy girly. When I do read fantasy, I do enjoy it, but it doesn't pull me to read it. Then it's young adult, literary, memoir, mystery, historical, thriller, and then the rest is whatever. As for the format of the books that I read, 26% were print, so physical. 27% was audio, which I am shocked about. And then 46% was digital, so on my ebook. I do want to read more of my physical books that I own because I think about like 80% of the books I own I haven't read, but it's hard. I find books on my like Kindle that I'm just like instant gratification. I see it, I want it, I read it, go on to the next one. And that concludes my stats for 2022. It was a really fun reading year. Though I did go through a slump in the beginning of the year, I found that I've like gotten to like a new groove of reading. I read basically every day. Most of the time it's before bed or on my lunch break or when I'm eating breakfast. Basically anytime I can, I try fitting in reading, and it's really been enjoyable. I have a lot of fun and exciting reading goals that I talked about in my last video for 2023. A lot of things that I want to start paying attention to and strive to do more with my reading and not just reading whatever is available, but actually be intentional of what I'm reading, because listen, we only have one lifetime to read books, and if I'm reading only on average now like 100 books a year, that is not a lot of books in my lifetime. This life is too short to read books we don't like. As many people are saying, 2023 is the year of DNFing. And I will for sure DNF anything that I'm not enjoying, maybe like 30% through. Let me know how your reading stats were for 2022. Let me know how many books you read, what your favorite 5-star reads were, any book suggestions. I'm all for it. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I will see you next week. Happy reading. Sugar, do you have to eat right now?